Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by robotic process automation pioneer SS&C Blue Prism. Digital transformation has the potential to reshape the way companies service their customers, engage their employees, and manage their operations. Whether you're looking to develop strategies, tactics, or best practices to positively impact the future of work, or you're curious to see how other companies have successfully navigated their digital transformation programs, then this podcast is for you. We're here to help you transform now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Marchuk. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. On this episode, our guest is Thomas Helfrich, CEO and founder of Instantly Relevant, writer for the AI Journal and Entrepreneur Media, as well as the host of the AI Nerd podcast. Today, we'll be talking with Thomas about the impact of technologies like AI and intelligent automation on the future of work. Welcome, Thomas.
Well, thank you for having me. That was a fantastic introduction. I appreciate that.
I hope so. Speaking of introductions, I'd like you to tell the folks a little bit more about yourself, because I know you've got quite a deep background in AI, intelligent automation, but a bunch of other things as well.
Oh, it's deep, baby. Intelligent automation is core to my kind of existence, right? But before I begin, thanks so much for having me on. It's nice to catch up with you. I think the last time you saw me was in a full robot. I don't know what that suit was, like a morph suit, drinking a beer on the top of some roof in New York City. So I've come a long way since then. It was anyway.
You've definitely matured. Absolutely.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I've gotten fatter, so that's nice. I'm not sure the camera adds 30 pounds, but I am damn sure COVID did. So my background, born out of .com, definitely remember myself being a better developer than I was, which everybody does. You know, you're so good when you're younger, forget all the bad things. But I've always spoken well about technology and understood its application to business outcome more so than probably the technical inner workings, but the cleverness to be able to speak at the C-suite buying level of technology, explain how it's going to improve or the business or why the value is there. And then more importantly, how do you put it in? How do you account for change management and buy it and et cetera, and maintain it? At the same time, flipping over to the technical side and being like, hey, here's the challenges. Can we do it? To understand if you can really solution it. So that's been the kind of the whole career path, and leading into the intelligent automation days, so to speak, about 10 years ago. And that's, when the RPA, robotic process automation, was really taking off. So I understand it. It led some decent intelligent automation projects with big companies like Eli Lilly and Stanley Black & Decker and a handful of other, small stuff. So I understand it completely. I've taken the principles of intelligent automation and applied them to content creation, social media management, and engagement. I'm looking for the conversation because it's intelligent automation is core to where I am now in my career and my life. And I'm happy to catch up for sure.
Well, we first met when you were part of ISG and in that robot suit, but you have a lot more depth to you than now. One of the things I know, as we've talked about the automation AI industry, is for a while, I'm sure you've seen the McKinsey article on the technology trends for 2022 that lists applied AI as their top innovation trend for 2022. And I want to find out from you, what do you think about this whole concept of applied AI finally making it to the forefront, and where you expect to see, this applied AI make the most impact within an organization?
Yeah, I mean, AI is such a broad term, and I still think it's defined as everything we can't do in technology but dream of. And so if we look at AI truly in the sense of augmented intelligence or accelerated intelligence, or a way to accelerate humans in their execution of what they do every day, then you have an AI that's applied, right? Whenever you have a narrow use case, a deep use case that's defined for a business outcome, and you really kind of stick to that, then you're on the path, I think, to what will become AI, because it'll be a component of a bigger system. So applied AI today, in my opinion, is just applying it to a use case correctly, where there's some type of learning, there's some type of automation, there's a human still in the loop or leading it to accelerate, because typically processes are human eccentric because they're for other humans. I'm not referring to banking transactions or high volume things that automation absolutely should be doing. I'm talking about the things that where AI should get involved, where there's actually intelligence. Well, a human needs to be just accelerated in those. So that's what I think is applied AI. I think it's also just marketing to some degree, that AI wasn't really working. It's too broad. Now we have applied AI.
Well, I think to your point, I mean, we've seen this over the years, how the transition of these technologies, they have advanced to be able to be more capable of assisting people in doing what's next. But to your point, I think that the way AI is applied in either various industries or various functional areas within an organization can vary widely in terms of what they can provide in terms of benefit and whatnot. When you look at the secret sauce that these companies are putting together for their AI applications, various companies are coming to market with specific tools that are doing AI. Do you see anything specifically that, from your perspective, where those tools are going to become more mainstream to reduce the impact or the difficulty with adopting what we consider AI?
Oh, absolutely. I think at some point it'll even look as, in some examples, criminal. So I think, and what I'll explain by that is healthcare. I think today, if people are using AI to do assessments and maybe reading radiology or whatever, or just looking at data to say you may have this or this, it's maybe novel. And there's a small group that would adhere to it. I think you fast forward 20 years or less, healthcare moves pretty slow, but maybe 20 years, it would be considered criminal if you're not leveraging this technology to do a full assessment. It would be considered old school and not what the generation that will be in that service will expect, I should say it that way. So I think they'll be negligent, maybe not criminal is the right word. The other piece would be definitely in banking. If AI is not being leveraged to 100% audit sample or looking at using automation to look at and transact so there's no error and removing just the ability for fraud or inconsistencies in data or anything, absolutely. So that's mainstream. But mainstream in the sense of business, chatbots, things like that, though my opinion on AI chatbots, they're just not quite there yet. I'll be kind in my words, but they are a component because it's learning. That's going to be mainstream for sure. And I think in the future, I just think there's going to be so many more things that are just look at GPT-3 for AI writing. If you're not leveraging this to accelerate your writing, good for you if you can do it, but you just can't do anything at scale. So, it's going to be leveraged when you need scale and humans are still going to be involved when you need like creativity and original thought leadership. So those kind of three examples are just from different levels of your health to just financial recording to, I'm going to write a blog post today. They're already there. It only goes faster, not to go down the regulation path, but like at some point, some governance needs to be around transparency and some type of explainability across all this, because it can be very powerful, especially as it grows and computing power continues to improve. So different discussion for a different day. It's mainstream to answer your question in very long-winded fashion.
Well, actually, to continue on that, you wrote an article last year titled "Autonomous AI: Are Humans Still in the Picture?" Can you describe do you think that blurry line between AI and human interaction is now in 2022? Because you mentioned the element of trust, and you just talked about a moment ago in trusting the decisions.
Interesting. Maybe I used AI to write that article and I don't recall it. Maybe you put me on the spot. Like I wrote that. No. So I'm a firm believer. I will say that I don't believe things are going to be completely autonomous AI automation only. I think some of the initial hype on that has always been oversold. And I've always held a position that intelligent automation is truly about accelerating a human, and you automate where you can and you augment where you can. But the whole intention is to grab the right tech and the right moment with the right human to make everyone go faster and have a little better life, if you will, if you just want to think from the emotional side of it or philosophical side. So I've forgotten the question because I'll get on my pedestal. I was about to step up. I'm like, I don't think you asked me that. So let me step off my pedestal for your question so I answer it. Otherwise, I'll be on a pedestal and I'll have to be like, oh, wait, what did you ask me?
No, you do bring up a good point, which is the interactions in business, generally speaking, are person to person, right? So
Right.
we when you buy something, you're a consumer at the end of the day. You're buying something for yourself or someone you love. You're making that purchasing discussion or decision. Even when businesses buy things, they're buying from other businesses to fulfill the needs of their end consumers, which are generally going to speak at some point down the line a person, right? And even within those companies, the decision-making process goes back to the people who authorize and pull the trigger to make those transactions happen. So there's going to be a level of trust between that. But at the end of the day, that the automation and the AI that facilitates the experience that a person has, whether they're in a business buying for the business or in a personal role buying for themselves or someone else, that experience can be enhanced by leveraging AI and automation to give a better buying experience.
Yeah, no doubt. And for the autonomy you were talking about, I don't think we're anywhere close to letting Teslas drive again by themselves. I think that's kind of interesting experiment. And I say Teslas, autonomous vehicles. But I think that's the same principle that's applied to business. At the end of the day, there's humans involved. Anything that's more on the digital side of business and business transactions, a great candidate for automation and AI to kind of take over and say, these are the rules, these are regulations, these are the numbers, here's the data, execute. But when it gets down to the human level, I actually think the more personalized you're going to be able to make it, leveraging technology, the better you'll be. And a good example would be like, these mass email kind of campaigns, automation and marketing emails, right? They're great. They're doing pretty good. But I think over time, and I don't use the word deep fake because it has a negative connotation, but if every video you got also had the really, in my voice, to say that person's name on a form, that's going to be really cool because I'm going to feel personalized and I'm not going to know if it was actually the person emailing me was actually said it or not. And I think that's a very cool application of personalization that should happen. And at the same time, the business transactions in a company are another example, right? So to reduce how many meetings you need to do to go get something done or how many questions you need, AI is fantastic. It's not. Example being in this interview, it'd be great if the AI was capturing and got your question and said, hey, you're off point, come back to it. That would be great in real time. So I could, oh yeah, wait, well, thanks. I think your autonomous answer is, it's something like the acceleration, like anything else. You stop noticing it. And so it'll be a necessity to do business at a scale. If you don't have that, then your product or service better fit the group that doesn't need it.
Well, the evolution piece is something that we all, it's like boiling the frog thing. We all don't feel the fact that the past even 10, 15 years now of the iPhone and the smartphone transition, how that slowly transitioned into a bunch of new services that are only available through that kind of medium. Within AI, I expect we'll have similar type of things. You mentioned some interaction where you use someone's voice or whatnot. There's all sorts of technologies now that provide that human agency, whether that's using an avatar or a very realistic avatar to be able to convey that kind of personal feeling. You talk about deep fakes and you include this avatar concept. Now I may be interviewing Thomas Helfrich's avatar, who via AI now is providing the answers back to me based on the expertise that you've included into the script.
Not to get philosophical on you, I will tell you that we tend to create things in our own form, and where that stems from is a different debate. However, if we're creating an AI based on how we think about thinking, likely we'll create a brain at some point that's nearer to what we are, but never really kind of get there because of the thing. So I just don't see the world ever being in a non-boiled frog situation. I don't see it's going to be too often. Oh, wow, we're all on fire now and we don't like it. Some people are just going to be cold and it's going to be too warm. But the analogy is great because you're always going to be boiled. I don't know if you've ever cooked at any point. So,
okay, to that end then, how can organizations not only embrace the new technologies from an automation and AI perspective as these technologies are advancing to provide benefit, but how can they dovetail that within their human workforce to integrate the personal feel of these things without abstracting it so far to bring in an autonomous feel to that interaction? So when I go do things online right now, I know that I'm interacting with a system, and I interact with that system as a system. You need this kind of data, I put the data in, when we look at this transition, though, AI is helping us to become more interactive personally. How do we factor that in to make sure that the people within our organizations are comfortable with that, or can we?
It's a fantastic question. I think it's one's been repeated through years and years of technology, right? People fear it initially, then they have to learn about it and trust it. And from in the intelligent automation space to AI, right? And I'm gonna bucket those in a similar, because I think IA is part of an AI story. So I think automating, repetitive tasks and semi uncomplicated tasks, I don't want to say too much, is part of that story. So, but I think a big problem, it's always been there, is it's been oversold, and it's been done by very good people who know how to sell. But the sales people aren't usually the typical ones that ever delivered it. And that's a whole different skill set than when you get into the weeds and it gets through it. And then, you're on. The story's already told, the marketing's already done at that point once it's sold, and there's very few follow-up. Hey, how did it go? But part of selling it and then, or as a technology company or a service provider, is positioning it correctly to meet expectations. And also then on the flip side of the organization that's buying it, to understand that it's not, especially AI and especially intelligent automation, it is really disruptive because it is absolutely touching some of the greatest fears of people losing their jobs of them not understanding technology, so feeling inferior or somewhat uneducated or just flat out like dumb to it. Like, right. Like, I don't mean it mean like I just feel dumb. I don't understand this. And that creates defensiveness, that creates then a pullback. You find every reason why it won't work. And instead of focusing on the one or two where it really can help. And the mixture of how it's presented then to the organization, sold internally, and then understanding that there's a giant change management component to it is absolutely step one. And so that I think to me was a miss in intelligent automation, that it got oversold. I actually think it also influenced all the kind of major players in this RPA space specifically to go too wide, too thin, instead of just being really core on what it does well and being that deep use case for, Blue Prism specifically, right? Like, they did such a good job of saying, we're finances. We know that space. We'll do billions of transactions a month because we know that. Awesome. I think it's a great brand piece for them on that. When it gets like, we'll automate everything and nothing to do with automation anywhere, but right. They went a whole different path with that, where they're like, hey, we can automate, and you can, but when you start mixing in AI and other things like that in your flat, you start thinning out your brand a little bit. And then you add a level of complexity that makes it really hard for a company to buy. And so there's a mix between where it's going and gone versus some of the initial pieces of intelligent automation. But then you mix AI, stay narrow and deep, sell it correctly, get the change management ready. I know that's a lot of words, but it starts with how it's presented to the market and how people hype it, and it goes from there.
So when you look at this, though, going towards maybe a vision perspective, when you take these components of where someone can dream up in their head a hybrid workforce working together as humans, digital workers, AI, all magically going together, to me, that's a future state kind of vision thing that someone has pitched. The transition between point A and point Z at that point becomes a series of iterations to get closer to whatever that vision was, or to change the vision as you go to make it more realistic as each one of those phases transition on. But in my mind, and perhaps you can weigh into this, is where do you see the organizational component coming in play, where we're actually going to plan to change our organization to accommodate these types of technologies and that vision, versus simply saying it's out there, it seems really cool, but we're not going to do much about it. We're going to staying on course.
Oh, it's great. I mean, well, ironically, it's through good people. We're going to automate through good people. And so if you think about having the right people in the right positions, the economy or the friction comes when you have your experts and SMEs and the people that need to get the knowledge up, that are potentially, they're so well versed in what they do that's a threat, or at least perceived as one. And so it's making sure that you have the right education and ethic in your organization, and the right incentives in place, and understanding of how things like automation or AI really work to accelerate, create different types of roles or jobs, understand that attrition always happens, things always evolve. That's how I think it's internal marketing versus being sold an idea and making sure those align. But the other piece is be upfront with it. So executive leadership being very clear on the mission. It was unbelievable how many times you do conferences and you'd be like, hey, who can cite their mission statement for intelligent automation? And no one's like, we don't really have one. Like, well, start with that. So the communication and the marketing, so to speak, inside is correct. The purposes are clear, that it's not about automating jobs. It's about accelerating our organization and us. And end of the day, I think taking that type of preparation, that type of just transparency, it takes leadership, right? And to do that and to stand up and say, we're going to automate some things. Some jobs are going to change. Headcounts are going to shift, period. And here's why we do it, and let people just fall out where they need to go do. And leadership and people, I mean, how you automate, how you automate people with people.
Well, that makes sense. Well, staying along those lines, who's the most influential person in your life and how they impacted you?
Oh, be definitely wife and kids. Yeah. Like that takes you from a 20-something-year-old moron to a 30-year-old something semi-moron to, I got kids now, I got to be less moron. So I'm like, average IQs come up maybe a little bit, and sensibility, humor. But no, it's definitely fam. So at the end of the day, it's the people closest to you, the people that are going to be at your funeral. I don't think you'll be at my funeral. It's all right. I like you, but I understand why. But like, honestly, that from a business sense, there's a handful of people I've met that I've been influential, but truly the people that kind of influence day to day of what you do are the people right around you that I see.
That makes sense. And finally, what inspires you as you look to not just technology, but just as you look at people, the technology, the growth, organizations, whatnot? What inspires you?
That's a good question. True inspiration for me comes from interacting with new people and solving problems for them. And so, shameless plug, right? But like the reason I started the company I started around marketing and creating content and social media is because people really struggle at it to to relate to others, to interact with them, to network effectively. People are very good at networking, very few people are effective at it. And so this core kind of component of I'm solving cool problems. Every customer though is different. And I do say like, no one is the same of what their exact problems are, what they want to do. But I love that solving the problems. That's a big motivator and inspiration for me, but also then meeting lots of new people. And then the affirmation of, hey, I really like what your services are, what you've created is a big thing that keeps me going. So, and it also motivates you when people are like, hey, it's not working. I'm like, okay, why? And so it's like the negative side becomes the learning thing you mend and you improve from it. And so if you can feel that way, if you're okay with the criticism, with the intent that you want to go chase what you love to go do, that's what gets me going, is the eyes forward. You have a rear view mirror for a reason. You only look in it occasionally. And if you look in it too long, you wreck your car. So stay eyes forward, look in the road ahead.
There you go. I appreciate that philosophical tangent. But I agree with you. I think that challenge, that purpose helps drive us all forward. And I appreciate you bringing that up. So Thomas, I want to thank you again for joining us today on Transform Now. Your insights onto AI and applied AI and organizational change are, I think, very timely in terms of how we're approaching these things. So I really appreciate you joining us today.
I appreciate you having me. It's always good to talk on the subject of it. And thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Transform Now. For more insightful discussions on digital transformation and more, check out our podcast channel where you'll find all of our previous episodes. And to make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you like what you've heard, please leave us a review. For more information about digital transformation and the future of work, check out blueprism.com to learn how SS&C Blue Prism's digital workforce is enabling enterprise transformation now.